Need for Speed has returned after a 2-year absence, bringing one of the biggest reinventions of the series yet and celebrating all aspects of car culture. Along with DriveClub going from strength to strength with every new update that comes along, and the Forza series finally getting back into its groove, it's fair to say that this is a good time to be a racing game fan.
Where have all the good Japanese racing games gone?
I'll tell you where they've gone. They've been traded in down the CEX and melted into plastic to make a sex swing for your ma and your dad's brother. Not like the Western games though. Classics.
Classics, eh, Scott? Well, while you're fighting for the West, I'm here to prove that while it hasn't released many racing games recently, Japan is still the best at them. This is East versus West.
Ready to go! Are you all set? 3, 2, 1, go!
The greatest racing games. You want to feel like you're in a real car? Then I've got the games for you. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not mad into racing simulation games, but I will eat a goddamn fresh pile of manure before I let Joe talk on and on about Gran Turismo. Honestly, some of the best sim games going are made by Western studios, and they maintain the realistic quality of the driving while, and this is important, not being boring as fuck. The roots of sim games are found in the West with games like Revs on the BBC, Indianapolis 500 the simulation for DOS, and Formula 1 Grand Prix. These were the games that really began to apply real-world physics and car control into racing games. By basing them around real-life racing events, they could use real tracks and begin to build the foundations of the genre.
3, 2, 1, go.
For me, my first real taste of this more realistic style of racing was Colin McCrae Rally on the PS1, and it was the first time I'd ever played a racing game that felt like it had real depth. As you played, each course would offer different challenges and weather conditions, giving you a chance to use different car setups, changing tyres, suspension, brakes and so on. It was giving you the chance to mix things up and giving you a real taste of real life rally racing.
3 left into 3 right.
Moving closer to the modern day, we're actually spoiled like Augustus Gloop when it comes to Western developed racing simulations, and it's not all just from the big, recognisable games. Look at Assetto Corsa, which is a stunningly realistic driving game from a really small team of dedicated people. Or check out iRacing, an online simulation game which doesn't just offer real tracks and cars to drive, but also a sanctioning body which oversees and organises the competitions on the servers. The simulation series is always going to be for the real enthusiasts, and the West really caters to the desire to drive a car while on the sofa, naked as the day you were born. Well, I suppose it's time for Joe to talk about, your Gran's Turismo.
Look, slag it off all you want, but you know that Gran Turismo is still the king.
There's a reason that car nuts all over the world wait patiently for each new release in Japan's premier racing game series. It's because, just like Sean Connery playing James Bond, nobody does it better. No Western sim has the soul and passion that goes into Gran Turismo. Every game in the series is filled with love for motorsport of all kinds, with a dream list of cars and a feeling of ownership that goes unrivaled with each new entry. Every race feels like something personal, because you're driving a car that you've taken from second-hand showroom to racing pedigree, with every upgrade and custom fitting. Alright, so car damage and race-destroying crashes in Gran Turismo have always been either non-existent or a bit pish. But car lovers care more about the joy of racing than the spectacle of crashing big. And Gran Turismo is a game for car lovers by car lovers. The only car lover bigger than Kazunori Yamauchi, Gran Turismo's leading creative force, is Yu Suzuki, a man who took simulator precision to the arcade with Ferrari F355 Challenge. Ferrari F355 is a weird anomaly. In a genre obsessed with having more tracks, more cars and more features, Suzuki's game takes his arcade heritage and applies it to simulations with a simple point. Here is one car, simulated to perfection. Now drive it the best you can. As far as I know, the arcade version was the only arcade game that actually had a clutch for fully manual gear changes. That's how mental this game is in its pursuit of simulation. But seeing as the arcade version is nowhere to be seen nowadays, it's good to know the Dreamcast version is just as great, and an even deeper sim. You still have the driving assists, but now every facet of the car can be tweaked and customised, and getting the perfect pre-race settings is just as important as how you fare on the track.
Between Gran Turismo and Ferrari F355 Challenge, Japan is still home for people like me who have a true passion for racing cars.
Right, that's simulation games out the way. Let's go on now to the real meat and potatoes of the genre, arcade games. If simulation games are art house cinema, arcade racing games are like watching Demolition Man over and over again. What I'm saying is that arcade games are the best. I mean, look at the Project Gotham Racer series from the greatly missed Bizarre Creations, which is full of fun cars to drive and excellent courses, and it's an easy game to pick up and play, which is the most important factor in an arcade game. These are games aimed more at folk like me, i.e. pure numpties, casuals, visitors to the genre. PGR4 was one of the first games I bought for my 360, and it was due in large part to the excellent Metropolis Street Racer on the Dreamcast, also from Bizarre, which was a game Joe and I fired hours into when we were younger. PGR4 though was something different, almost like the perfecting of the arcade formula, that sweet spot between giving the cars real weight and handling and making everything go at about 800 miles an hour. It also introduced motorbikes into the series, which introduced a new dynamic into the races, with motorbikes having the edge when it came to cornering, but missing out on the higher speeds on the straights. A lot of Western racing games strike a great balance between realism and fantasy, and you can see this in loads of games like Grid and DriveClub. Well, they use real tracks and cars, and the cars all feel distinct. The cars feel lighter, cornering is easier, and it's more fun because of it. Certainly for an absolute joke of a person like me. Talking about absolute jokes, here's some Japanese racing games.
You can talk about DriveClub and Grid all you want, but if you're not going sideways around a corner, then you're not playing a proper arcade racer. Japan knows this, and that's why it's the home of drifting. Let's start with Outrun 2. The original Outrun was a classic, but Outrun 2 improved on the formula by adding wild, miles-long drifts. There are very few games that capture the sheer joy of sliding around at 100 miles an hour with the sun glistening off your bonnet of your beautiful Ferrari, impressing your girlfriend with your drifting prowess. Just make sure you don't crash.
What are you doing?
If the long, gentle drifts of Outrun 2 aren't what you're after, then you need to check out the racing phenomenon from Japan, Initial D. Initial D Extreme Stage for the PS3 pits you in one-on-one battles down winding mountain paths. The drifts here are violent and erratic, and you're always fighting for control. It can be difficult and frustrating to get used to, and the first few battles can be incredibly difficult. But once you get it, boy does this game sing. You'll tame those wild drifts, and the rhythm of those endless hairpins becomes second nature. But the king of the drift, and the king of arcade racers, is the legendary Ridge Racer. The series has been part of gaming for so long that almost everyone has played a Ridge Racer game, but for my money, no game comes close to Ridge Racer 7 for capturing what arcade racing is about. It's unrelentingly fast. The cities you drive through are stunning, and the drifting is beautiful to behold. Your machine drifts almost on rails, making the drifts look incredible, but giving you just enough control to push the game to its limits. There's nothing realistic about these drifts, but they make sense in the incredible world of Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer 7 rewards your best drifts by giving you more nitrous gives you more speed, and more speed lets you do better drifts. Arcade racing doesn't get as focused and as perfectly designed as that. And if you want an example of how the West truly ruins arcade racing games, just look at Ridge Racer Unbounded, a western take in the series that is so bad that sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat after nightmares about it. Japan is the king of arcade racing games, and if you're going to challenge the king, you better make sure that you're worthy of the throne.
We've looked at sim and arcade racers, but there's so many more that we could look at. Games like Blur, a BitSocket favourite, Mashed, which is like Micro Machines turned up to 11, and fucking Micro Machines as well. These games, while not being like the massive sellers we've talked about before, are really important to play, and we fucking love them. Racing games, like any great genre, are always best played with friends all crowded around a single TV, and games like Blur will always be special because of them.
Now, if we're talking about games like Blur and Mash, then you better damn well know that Mario Kart 8 is going to get brought up. Mario Kart 8 was our Game of the Year 2014, and it just keeps getting better and better, with more tracks, more characters, and the super fast 200cc mode that really pushes your skills to the limits. Mario Kart 8 almost makes other racing games irrelevant, to be honest. And whether you're time trialling alone or racing friends online or on the couch, Mario Kart 8 is just so much fun. There really is nothing else like Mario Kart, and while other kart racing games have tried to beat it over the years, I'm looking at you, Sonic, Mario Kart 8 is undeniably the king.
Thing is, Japanese racing games are great, and games like Mario Kart 8 are essential for folk like me who aren't interested in driving a Porsche around in a great big circle all day long.
And I've got to admit that in terms of sheer numbers, the vast majority of racing games nowadays are coming out from the West. And in that respect, the West really has won. That said, nothing beats Mario Kart 8 though.
Yeah, pretty much.